But let's get right to Doc on Cleared to Play. Take you inside the tent, get you updated on the latest injuries in the Bay. Proud to partner with UCSF Health on this segment as we bring an associate professor of orthopedic surgery, Dr. Nirav Pandya, who's a fan of all the teams, but Warriors first and foremost. And you tripped me up the other day, Doc, with your Warriors. Steph Curry plays basketball in how many days? What was that you said?
Oh, I think it was a couple days ago. In 12 days. Now we're up to 9 days. So we got to keep the people updated.
I'm like, wait,
wow.
What? He's playing Steph Curry in 9 days? I wasn't even thinking about that, but you're right. Okay, Doc. First thing, Trey's kind of obvious. You've already come on this show and talked about it. We can get to a little bit more, but I don't think we asked. How'd you think Jimmy's shoulder looked?
I think it actually looked great. And when I was watching him come in, I'm like, does it actually look like he has a little bit more velocity on the ball? It looks like he was throwing it with a little bit more snap. So, I think one of the silver linings with an athlete who undergoes upper extremity surgery is that probably for the first time in Jimmy's career, he actually has had to work and rehab on his shoulder, and maybe it's potentially even coming back stronger. So I think that was a positive sign. It didn't appear to be his mechanics were off at all. And he got a couple blows to the shoulder as well, too. He got kind of thrown into the turf. So all things considered, you worry about contact, you worry about his throwing, and both of them looked great. So I think all things considered, that doesn't seem to be it's going to be an issue moving forward.
From an upper extremity to a lower extremity, a report came out yesterday that Trey Lance could potentially be back in 12 weeks. Based on the surgery that was reported, do you think it's feasible that he could possibly be back in time for January football?
I think it's a pretty low likelihood. I mean, I think when you have a regular individual, kind of your common everyday person, you can get back to doing normal stuff right around 3 months. But I think when you look at NFL players, the data shows that somewhere between 120 to 140 days is when they return. And then you think about a running quarterback, and I don't think it's necessarily the issue is Trey's bones going to heal, is his ligament going to heal, but can you then actually be effective in a football game? It's one thing to go back to playing basketball on the weekend when you break your ankle. It's another thing to have 300-pound linemen falling at your ankle and you're trying to dodge and also throw the football at the same time. So even though structurally there may be that chance, I think the unique nature of football will prevent him from actually being able to be effective, even if the team is willing to take that risk for his ankle.
Fascinating that report came from the Rams consultant doctor saying that Trey Lance could be back. I'm like, thanks, Rams doctor, for your take on Trey Lance. So I'm with you, Doc. I think we've seen the last of Trey Lance this year. Not the case for George Kittle, though. You said something real interesting last week. Yes, a wet field could mean bad things for George Kittle. We did get a wet field. They didn't play him. In theory, I haven't looked at a Denver report, but are we thinking it's time for George Kittle to get back on the field?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this will be a good week for him for I think a couple of reasons. Number one is obviously the field will be a little bit less stressful on the groin. But I also think he only really got 1 day of practice. It was that practice on Friday where they showed the videos of him getting out there. So I think because it's early in the season and because this is a muscle that really has to get stressed in an explosive manner, we'll get a couple of days of practice. He can make sure that his groin is feeling well. And then I would anticipate, barring him having any soreness or other issues, that he'd be able to play on Sunday. Now, if he doesn't play on Sunday, that's when you get a little bit more worried. Is there something larger going on? But just based on the reports from Kyle Shanahan, this will be George Kittle's week to reconnect with Jimmy G and bring back some of that magic from last year.
That'd be great to see him back there. Certainly, Jimmy Garoppolo and the Niners need an additional security blanket. Another quarterback injury that's got everyone interested is Justin Herbert, who had some sort of a rib injury, a fractured rib cartilage. What's the ability for a quarterback to come back and play this quickly after that injury?
Yeah, we typically hear about kind of broken ribs, which are more the bone aspect of things that will definitely give them discomfort. The rib cartilage is technically where the rib kind of attaches to your sternum in the front of your chest. And that's a very painful injury. And if you look at kind of scattered reports, it can sometimes take 2 to 4 weeks. But if you can get the pain under control, that's really the key thing. People are saying, well, it's better to break your cartilage than in your bone. Well, actually, cartilage injuries take longer to heal. So there is a possibility that with pain relief, if he isn't able to get it, then it could be longer. And obviously, the Chargers kind of had an interesting track record with injections for their quarterbacks in their ribs. So I think they may be a little bit hesitant to go down that route. But it's all about pain. And if he can handle the pain and throw, then he's totally fine. If not, it could be a couple weeks before this really heals up.
Interesting. We'll get our first report on Justin Herbert today from Chargers practice. So that is one that I know a lot of fantasy players, yours truly included, are watching very, very closely. Doc, as always, great stuff, and we thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.